right. Let's take a look. Is the breakout room still closing? There we go. I feel like we're lost a few people. Okay. Wait, it's trash. All right. Sweet. So it looked like only maybe 4 were able to complete it. I don't know if anyone else completed it. Definitely click on the thing.
Complete the code from like earlier today, correct?
Yeah, the one that it's the catch up. The one where we're just catching up. That's really all I wanted. If you were doing the other stuff, that's great. I don't expect that you would have finished if you try to go ahead with the other one, but you might have made some progress there. So who is having issues? Because if you did do it, that's fine. I know I was helping a day with something. It's really weird. Nothing was, these sub route, like this home route wasn't really working. Don't really know what it was. There were no errors. So at that point in time, I suggested copying and pasting code because there were no errors. And at that point in time, it was one of those errors or where this isn't a callback. And so anytime you clicked on it, all you saw was home. So my first instinct was, oh, the callback must be running ahead of time, right? You didn't have it as a callback. You had it as just the function. But that wasn't the case. So I don't really know what it was. So copying and pasting is usually the next thing. So when I do this, what I just suggest for everyone is I stay in instructor examples, you stay in student. I push my stuff up to instructor. You have something to compare. It's about really like, I'm trying to do this. This is the thing. And I'm trying my best to like do it from scratch, but I got stuck. I don't know how to do it. Let me take a look and see. Let me see if I can understand. Let me write notes for myself. It's about you. You're going to understand it to the degree in which you want to understand it. And by wanting, I mean write notes explaining everything that you did, that you didn't understand, right? That's the best way to learn, right? Just doing a code along is not the best way to learn. It's not the even efficient way to learn because you're just coding along, right? Your brain is too busy trying to like keep up, and then you get lost, and then you don't know, you don't recall. Who had any issues that would like to maybe just show, and we could possibly work out 1 or 2 issues before we go on to the rebuild of the next one, see if we can implement what we already learned. Anybody?
I'm having issues and I don't know where or why.
Okay, so let's hit it up, Chrissy.
Okay.
Share your screen. Let's do this. Because it really is, the thing is a pretty basic app, right? So when we hit an issue with this basic app, it's like, where could we? Oh, let me pause share, stop share, right? Okay, you go, Chrissy, sorry. I'm recording, by the way, also, so we'll capture everything here. All right, Chrissy, let's see what we got. So you got your routes, all right? And what's not working? Can you zoom in on the code too? My eyes aren't that great and it comes in really small, your code.
What did you say?
Can you zoom in on your code? Just do a command ++ so I can see your actual code. I see it on the screen, but it's really small for me. In your editor? Yeah, that's better. Thanks, Chrissy.
Yeah.
All right, so what's happening? What's not working?
It's not, even though I'm clicking kitchen, it's still house component.
That's the same thing that was happening to a day. A day was having the same issue where clicking on that was the only thing that didn't work, right?
Right.
Home and house worked. But
And it's like, I mean, the routes are there.
sure. Are
Yeah.
the routes even updating? Like when you do click on it, do the routes update at the very top? I do see house,
Oh,
bathroom,
yeah.
right? So house, kitchen, house,
This
bathroom. So
not
that's cool.
updating. And how did you put a console log in
Room.
room here?
Yeah. Just console log. You can't do that in a the only place that you can really console log in class-based components is in methods or in render. But
Can
in
you
a
go back
functional,
to your app? Can you go back to your app.js?
Yeah.
So I found I have the same problem, and I switched to exact path, and it worked.
so it's the paths.
And I had to do the slash as the first one for home. House is this. I had to follow your example exactly to get it to work.
So the example that we built out, that's the exact example that you followed. There we go.
So like this?
Yep, we got house, room. Yeah, I have, in my example, I actually have the default routes at the very top, like just / path. I have 3 routes. Is it working?
That's weird. No, it looks like it rerouted. When I click on these, it reroutes to home.
Got it. So what I did, just the way that I have this configured for the switch. So I'm going to slack out what I have configured for the switch on my side. I mean, it's in the code, but that's the switch that I have. So I have a default route at the very top that's going to home, one that's going to house, and one that's going to house room. And then a
Yeah,
readout.
once I followed yours exactly, it worked for me. So
Yeah. I think that's what it was. So even though maybe before it worked the way you might have had it, Chrissy, and probably the same thing for a day, the minute you started adding new stuff,
Yeah.
those routes are being interpreted. The exact is like exactly this thing. It can only have a /. It's still not working, right? Okay, so even when we click on it too, like it's just saying this is home. So it's always going to home and never hitting house. There you go. At least house hits, right?
House still works, but
not the kitchen. So we have house, kitchen. Click on kitchen again. Yeah, it looks like the route for kitchen isn't there. Go to bathroom. Let me see.
it was working before we added exact.
Yeah. Let me
check
see.
out your header.
Yeah, I mean that looks good, right? Because it's also, oh, what is that? It is weird, right? At this point in time, this is where I would walk through that process of kind of like taking my code and pasting it over and seeing if there's something we're not seeing. Whatever it is, the tiny thing that we're not seeing. All right, I pushed up everything I had earlier.
Okay.
So, maybe start with the header just to see. Like yours looks exactly the way that I have it. I cannot imagine that there's anything different here. Once again, when I get into these things where I can't see it, and I'll tell you, I've come across problems before where I've copied and pasted, someone copied and pasted code to do something. Some of the code that was copied and pasted, you couldn't see. There were like characters there, but you could not see them. I had to rewrite the code from scratch, and then it worked, and it was the same thing. So, is that what you're doing right now, Chris? Or you're just copying and pasting?
I'm just like visually comparing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or did you want me to actually copy and paste?
Yeah, I would just say like, we don't know. If you copy and paste, we can get to the solution and be like, all right, this header component, now it works. Let's undo it and let's do the comparison, because then you know it's this thing. Like, I don't know what the problem is. So you can just copy and paste all the code in the header and then just see. You know, maybe it's your routes. I don't know what it is. There's the app. And obviously, if nothing changes after you copy and paste, then you just undo what you did, right? And you can go back to your code, because then it's just like, there's no big deal. What does that say? Failed to compile, can't resolve component.
I think that all of my everything is named differently. So like, I would literally have to copy and paste everything that you did.
Got it. Yeah, then that's
The
not
files are not the same.
okay. Yeah, then that's not the solution. Yeah, I don't see it. Like, I just don't see what's happening. Because you have exactly what I have. Component home, component house. All right, exact path, redirect. Yeah, I can't see it. I'm thinking it has to do with the routes on app. Like, I almost think like that's where we're stuck. Oh, you know what you don't have? All right. I mean, oh, you do have it. Okay. I just couldn't see it. Yeah, you have it. You got the switch. You got it all. I don't know. I can't see. Can't really see. Go back to your app and let's test it out just one more time and see. Outside of that.
What if it's like switch away?
All right, take it away. Let's see.
We're not sure that it's really doing anything anyway, right?
No,
Well, I don't. I don't think house room is an exact path. I think the first two are.
Is there a / before house?
That's a good point.
But in
No.
that house path, is there a / there?
Nope,
Nope, that's it.
that's probably it.
There you go.
Huh.
So that was it. See how hard it is to see what's going on?
Yeah, and it's usually just something stupid like a typo.
Yeah. And this is where I kind of emphasize that if you copy, like if you did exactly what I did, I understand, like you can go in any direction you want, but copying and pasting could just be like, I have everything what looks like to be exactly what was done, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens is if you copy and paste small sections, and now it works, you know at least it's the small section that you focus in on. At that point in time, I start copying and pasting one line of code, right? And if the one that I copied and pasted doesn't change anything, I undo it and go back to mine. And then I keep doing that until I get the line of code, and then I determine what it is.
Yeah. And I guess it would have made more sense to like start at that one particular line of code because that's really the only thing that was broken.
Bingo. And maybe just copy and paste that one line of code or rewrite the route out one more time. You know, these little tips on just how to troubleshoot really help in the end, because you can spend hours trying to troubleshoot a basic thing like this. And when your app starts to grow and grow, things are going to get crazy. You're going to spend hours troubleshooting. So that's why I suggest, a lot of the times I suggest when people or students build out projects. So when you have this Unit 3 project and it's like, build out an Express server that does this, take a previous server that you built in class, one that you know works. Copy that code and then make the changes for the route names and the controller names and the models to fit your new model, right? And then that way, at least you have a template. You know the thing works, and you want to rename. And if you can rename the things in the right places, then you figured things out too. There's the need to like write everything from scratch to build out a server. And when you're out there working, it's going to be months before anyone even ever asks you to build a server. So you're trying to master the nuances of every like rec and res and like yada yada. You're not going to work with that on a regular basis. So learn the concepts, learn to look for the right answers, and then definitely look at a troubleshoot. So Ade, I think that probably solved your problem then too, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Feels good just, getting one problem solved, which then is multiple problems. Okay, sweet. Anyone else have anything different than that? Did that like solve some other people's problems? That could have been like the problem solving thing. It's hard to find those little one-offs where you're not getting an error, you're just not getting, right? Errors are much easier to like target in on. Okay, looks good. So what I wanted to do, once again, reapplying your basic understanding of React and reapplying the fundamental things here that you were working on, right? Is this, right? This little Tornadoes website. It's just a website for some sort of, I don't know, baseball team or whatever. If you had to go build this, what would be your structure, your application architecture? Like, how would you try to design it? What components would you create for it, right? What I'd like to do is, I think everyone has this. I think did I Slack it out? I think I did Slack it out. All right, let me just take a look. Slacked out, yeah. Was Slacked out earlier. Everyone has it. What I'm gonna do is, I'll put people into breakout rooms in just groups of 2. And what I want you to do is open up a Google Draw document, right? Which is easy enough. Just go to Google, go new, more, and then just Google Draw. I think it's at the very end of here. Where's my Google Draw? Drawings. And I want you to draw the architecture that you think it is, right? I did share an example of an architecture this morning, right? A much more complicated one, right? I shared this. What I want you to do is put as much information as you can that you think would break down this particular app, whatever it is. How do you break this app down? Click on it, draw it out, put some boxes for app. What are your naming conventions? What do you think? We don't need a form because we're not capturing anything. This is all clicks. Where would you store your data? Where's the best place to store the data? Consider that you're going to have routes. So this would need to be updated to have maybe a route component here that then branches off into 2 other things. Considering that this home, schedule, roster is the only one that looks like it changes things, right? The other ones look like they could be standard on the home page, and roster might be the one that changes things. So where would you go about changing that? Okay? That sounds doable, right? It's your shot at just kind of drawing it, okay? So breakout rooms, I'm gonna close all the breakout rooms, recreate the breakout rooms, and I think, what do we got here? We got 1, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, so 7, maybe 8 breakout rooms. 8 breakout rooms. Automatically, definitely 2 participants per breakout room. Cool. 2, 6. I'll do 7. All right. Now have you jump in the breakout rooms, okay? Let's say about, I don't know, I'm going to say 10, maybe 50 minutes. I'm going to click on the thumbs up when you're done. Click on the thumbs up when you think you have it. And then share the link in the Slack channel. Share a link to your Google Doc. One person is obviously going to be doing it, okay? Here we go. Boom. Mace, so Mace, I'm going to move you with, looks like, move to breakout room 1, boom. And Brendan should not be there, so I'm going to move Tiffany with Yushira 2. Brendan can get moved to breakout room 3. Okay, open all rooms. Go ahead. Alrighty. Looks like everyone's done it. All right. Who wants to? So we're waiting. A couple more people. Anybody here so far want to share a link to their drawing? I didn't get any direct links. Cool. Who wants to share? No link. Okay. It's like, here we go. All right. So nice. I like it. Spent a lot of time with the little arrows and everything.
So I discovered this new app, and you might want to use it too. It's a lot easier than the Google Draw, but
Okay.
it's still sweet. It's draw.io. All you do is type it, and you can create diagrams like this really easy.
Sweet. Yeah. I think I'm going to use that then. Cool. So it looks like you have app with routes, right? So you're going to be using router up there, right? So app is going to have router wrapped around it. And then within app, we would have, these would be the routes, right? Home, schedule, roster, and then obviously header. So the routes are going to be these three, right? Home, roster, and schedule?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so everything that is on there, aside from app, is a component.
Okay, everything that's on there except for app is a component?
Yes.
Okay. So you're not rendering app via index like we've been doing with Create React App?
Okay, well, I guess app is a component as well.
Okay. When you think about your, your React design, everything I see here is really going to be a component. And everything we've created with Create React App is always spun up to be a component. So this looks pretty good here. Header is obviously going to have the links. Cool. Home looks like it'll render header. Okay. And welcome to Tornado. Okay. So like the title of the page, and then the roster is going to show a UL of them. And then from there, we spin off into individual runs. Almost like these little ones could be a click that would then change to another component or something. And then I think the thing is this is probably going to be the biggest one, because something we did not discuss is that route, switch, some of those routing elements can be nested. So you could have nested routes. You could actually have route at the top level, that route's a component, and that component could have its own set of routes that change the URL. So this is really close to what the design would be, in all honesty. Cool. Who else? Anyone else want to share what their design was? There's a lot of detail there. Don't be intimidated. Mace just discovered a new tool, so not that bad. Other takers, huh? Somebody take. Spent some time. Rod, what about you? What about you and Chrissy working, right? I know, Rod. I'm excited too, right? You want to send it. So send it.
Oh, I most definitely did. Now, one moment here.
Sure.
Well, we didn't do too much, but
Okay, I mean that's fine. I'm not looking for reinventing the wheel here.
No, agreed. It's the right here. We slacked it here.
Where'd you slack it? Because I don't see it.
In the little.
I'm in Starfleet Classroom. I don't see it.
Underneath.
Oh, did you put it in the design? Oh, I got you.
Yeah,
Here.
my fault. Sorry.
Got it. Yeah. I had asked them to like either Slack me directly or.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I just wasn't even looking there. Surad, here we go. Otherwise, I would have shown it. All right. So app. You have your nav, and then your nav is then going to render homepage, roster, links, players, kind of similar, right?
Yeah.
You know, this will help. You know, obviously this line must mean like this might be the router or something. Navigation.
Yeah, that's what we were.
All right, cool.
Going
Let's
for.
see. All right, let me take a look at Quincy. Let's see what we got here. All right, here we go. App, home, nav header, schedule, and roster. Okay. Seems pretty cool. Let me show you what I had just put together based on the design, right? Based on the design that was or is in that app. And outside of it being a GitHub, a CodePen, outside of that, I've never really turned it into a Create React app. So it's in these little components that are in there, but based on the design, this is what it looks like. Router wraps around app, right? So router kind of gives birth to app. App has a header. App has a main. The main gives access to route or routes. And then route has home, roster, and schedule. You can build these things in different ways. So I don't want you to think like you're stuck in one hard, fast, only one way to do the thing. Okay, there's lots of things to get something done in React, in application design, whatever it is. So your design might work, but I really want to emphasize this process. Like when you build out your project, Unit 3, use this process. Spend as much time as you can designing it, thinking it through. What are you looking to put where? What gets passed down to where? Match all of your expectations. See the visual design, see the flaw, see the, hey, we forgot to pass down yada yada. Hey, where's the yada yada coming from? And then by asking those questions, you can only do that by seeing a design. If you don't see the design, then you don't know. And remember, if you're working on a team, somebody else who's working on a small section can look at the design and go, oh yeah, this data was coming from that component like 3 levels higher, and it's being passed via this function, and that's how I get it. So they know what to look for. Okay, that's the idea. I think the only one, you know, once again, spending the time, like where would, just trying to find like the data, where would the data be loaded? So I'll go back to yours, Mace. Yours is, you know, pretty detailed. Where are we actually importing the data? I don't even know from the designs where data is being imported. And does data even need to be accessible in the app itself? Or should data be in like just the roster component? You know what I'm saying? It's one of these things. Where is state? Do we need state? What's props? What's being passed down? Things like that need to be considered when you're doing this also. So, you know, building out, where's the to-do list app? This one, bit more detailed. A lot of things in regards to methods that are being done, like what's in state, cool. App is also passing down these methods here. Things like, you know, fetching the task, sorting the task, setting, creating based methods, updating based methods, deleting based methods. Consider that when you're building out your app, okay? We didn't need that for now. We want to keep it really simple, okay? So let's go back to this. So I'm going to spin up a new Create React app, and we'll build it out. We'll put this thing together. I'll share the data, and we'll import it, and we'll try to get this as close to that design or one of these designs as possible. Boom. Okay. So Create React app, and we'll call it Tornadoes, right? That's going to be our app. And I have Tornadoes here. Right? I don't need these files open anymore. We'll still maybe reference those if and when needed, correct? Might need access to those. Put Tornadoes over here. And once my file is complete, There you go. Happy hacking. Happy hacking. I know up to this point too, we've all been using PWD, npm start, right? We're not going to use yarn start. I don't want to walk down the road of yarn start, but I don't know if yarn was ever discussed. All right. Yarn is a competitor to npm. So npm is, you know, not even, it doesn't even stand for Node Package Manager. That's what we call it. But it is, that's what it does. It's a Node Package Manager, right? Yarn is also some sort of package manager. You know, people came out with the idea like, hey, let's have a better package manager. Yarn happened to be the one. Create React app is now pushing Yarn because, you know, they're not telling us to do npm start. They're telling us to do yarn start. I'm still going to stick with npm because that's what, you know, Ryan does. That's what the class is kind of based on. So I'm going to change into tornadoes, ls, and then npm start my app. Okay, we can all do this once again as like a code along. So I'll try to keep it. We'll get this done before 5. No one's going over 5 today. I learned my lesson the hard way. Don't keep anyone past 5. So we're going to try to bang it out. So it'll be a code along if you want to code along, and I'll push up the code as we go along. But I'm going to keep it at a pace that we can get this done by 5 o'clock. Okay? So my app should have started already. Where's my app? Let's see. I think it might have started on another machine. Oh, here we go. Started over here. There's my app. There's my app. There it is. And this is the functionality. I'm going to move our functionality over here. And I'm going to move the design that I kind of mocked up here based on what they're rendering, right? So what's the first thing we need to do with React Router? I actually have to turn off my React Router because what did I forget to do? npm install React Router DOM, right? Got to do that. Can't do anything without React Router. Do this all day. We don't have React Router. We're not going anywhere. We'll get this loaded. Excuse me. Once that's done, go ahead and get started. It takes a while though, right? Version. Wow. Definitely install a lot of stuff just to use React Router. Getting close. Bing. Now I can npm start. All right. The same server was spinning up earlier. And now we have React Router. Awesome. So the first place we'd want to go is to app, or actually index. Index is the first place we want to go because we need to import. What are we importing here? Anybody remember?
Router?
Yep. Browser router as router. This is the only time you really see this. The real thing that they created was called browser router. Why they created it as browser router, I don't know. Just know that that's what they decided to call it. And everyone was just like, I don't know, that's a lot of typing for browser router, so can't we get a shortcut? Sure, that's our shortcut. Browser router from React, here we go, single quotes, right? React router down. Well, you know what? I'm going to make sure, oh, we're still recording, good. Boom. So now I have it. I'll move this over just a little bit. Do this over. Awesome. And now we need to wrap, because it is a, what kind of component wraps other components? We give that a term. That was called a
higher order.
Yep, higher order component. Higher order components wrap other components. That's what they do. They provide functionality to the child component. Okay? They're not just for like structure, because router here really isn't providing structure, I would say, right? It's providing functionality. It doesn't give me any CSS styling or any real elements on the page, but it gives me functionality behind the scenes. Okay? Save it, nothing happened. This is the same thing. It flashed at one point in time, but that was really it. So in doing browser router, we allow ourselves to use the router functionality. So once again, this is done once. This is done once at the root level of the app, so that the rest of the app has functionality for router. Just like React DOM render is done once at the top level of the app to mount your app, so is router, okay? All right, now that we have router, awesome. I can go to app, all right? And with app, we have all this stuff in app that we don't necessarily need, right? I don't need all of this, so I can get rid of all of that. If I do that, our app would refresh and there should be nothing there. I don't need logo, I get rid of logo. So this is my basic structure for my app. We are gonna do two things. And so what I suggest sometimes is create the thing here, make sure it works, and then I can always copy and paste it someplace else. And what I'm saying is, I do wanna have a placeholder here. So I'm gonna just create, you know, a JSX comment. I want a header component, right? Header component here. But you know, before I do the header component, maybe I'll just create the header and make sure things work, and then I can always move it over, right? Keep it simple, and then we can do it. So, you know, I would say a nav, sounds like a perfect place, right? Nav component. We're gonna have inside this nav, we'll have a UL, right? I'm gonna do it right here. Okay. And then we're gonna have an LI, right? We're going to be using link, but I don't necessarily want to import it right now because it'll probably break. So I'll just kind of stick with that anchor tag right now, okay? Just to get the thing working, and then I can always change it later. I'm just trying to baby step stuff so it works. Anchor tag, href. That looks good. I don't see why it's breaking. So maybe we need to, anchor tags must have content. Oh, that's why. Okay. Home. There's my content. I got home. If I copy and paste this now, I can do roster and change this to be roster. And I'm going to change this to be schedule. Okay. And so that looks, it looks like it's, you know, it's there, it's working, everything's clickable. I just want to make sure things work first. I have this thing, it works, and I will be putting I will be creating a header component and putting this in there, and within the header component is where I will import the link component, the React router link component. So I'm gonna go do what we should be doing, right? Create a components folder. Right? In our components folder, a new file called header.js. Okay. For simplicity's sake, like I have stuff here, man, I could just probably copy this whole thing, paste it, make a few edits, and boom, I got the thing. I don't have to like remember like, oh, I forgot to export. Oh, I forgot to do this. So I just kind of copy and paste it and get rid of the things I don't need. Don't need app.css, right? This component will be called header. So I could command click there, and in one shot, change it to header. Right? I'm not going to use this class name of app. Don't need that. Don't need that. That looks solid. Within, 15 seconds, I'm able to have another component without having to worry about, at this point in time, things erroring out because I forgot to add things. This looks like a good structure. Last thing we need to do is to import. What needs to get imported here now from React?
Link.
Yeah, React router down. Okay, so we need to import link, and that's really all that needs to get imported here, right? The header really only needs link, and so we replace the anchor tags here, right? And once again, I could do this all in one shot. So it's not that hard to make these small changes. Boom, 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 and link. And really, within 30 seconds, I have another component. Okay. So we built our true first components, but we did with a lot of copy and pasting. Okay. So I will do this. Where is it? Okay. Git add, git commit added header component git push. Boom. Right. In case you got lost or anything, I'll push up the code periodically so you won't get lost. Okay? At any point in time, you just like, I don't know, it was going really fast. But we have our header component right here. Okay? Easy enough. I'll also slack that out. Want to catch up? Okay. Now we're in app. We have our header. I'd like to use my header, right? So in app, we would just import, right? Header from components / header. I don't need all of that anymore because I created my header. Boom, we're right back in, and it still works, right? Changes the URL, everything looks like it's working. Okay. Now, also, once again, based on the design that they had, I'm trying to follow their design, right? They created the design. We could do it any which way. That particular tornado one wasn't something that I created. I pulled it. And so they have a main component here. So this main component will be creating routes. Do we really need a main component? I don't know. But we're going to create the main component.
Show me in just a second.
So if we know we're going to create a main component, kind of based on like what I was doing earlier, the main component is going to be responsible for our routes. Now, I really don't want to go here and do that thing because then we really have to import it. A route and switch are going to break if we don't import it, and the app doesn't need that. So here, I would go to components at this point in time and create a new main.js file. Same concept though. I'm going to kind of copy paste what this has and then just make some small minor edits. Copy and paste header, right? I don't need link, but I do need switch, and I do need route. It's not going to be called header. It's going to be called main. Okay. It's not returning a nav at all anyway. It's going to return something else. Makes sense that it's main, so it makes sense to return a main element, right? Okay. Easy enough. I'm almost there. At this point in time, we just add what? If I imported switch and route, we'd probably want to add our switch. What does our switch do? What is the switch supposed to do? I know kind of based on what we were doing, maybe our design was working anyway because we used exact on everything. But what is switch supposed to do? So if I ask the question here, what is switch doing? Who kind of has an idea about switch? The most general idea. I think switch is doing blah, 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 blah. Or blah, 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 blah. Nobody? Yushira, what do you think it's doing? What's switch doing? Okay. You're like, good question. Yeah, no, Paul, what do you think switch is doing? What is it supposed to do?
Sorry, I had to unmute there. It's just setting those links for us to exact match, right?
Yeah. So the concept of switch is to return the first matching route. That's its job. Okay? The first matching route is what it aims to return. So you can limit the use of exact. I don't necessarily think we can get rid of exact because every example I've seen of switch includes exact in some way, shape, or form. But what this can do is limit the use of exact, okay? And that's what switch is doing. So it's going to try to find something, and then it'll do the thing. And then route is what's responsible for routing things, okay? So here, I'm going to say path is equal to, because we need a path, and then the component is going to be equal to home. Remember here I have home, roster, and schedule. Okay? And then we have to close it. Now this is going to break our app, right? Or is it going to break our app? Not going to break our app yet because we didn't import main just yet, right? Main's not imported. We're going to have to create these little components as we go along. Right? So let me just see what home is going to look like. Really basic thing here. Home component is just that. 6 is home. Yeah. Here's my home. All right. We have a home. We'll create these and then I'll go back and create the other ones. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to look at the diagram again. Here's the diagram. Here's the diagram. Here's the diagram. I got roster and schedule. 2 additional paths. And so this one will be a path of roster. And of course, at some point in time, we will show roster. This one will be a schedule. And so this should be a schedule. Okay? Once again, it's kind of screaming at us because we don't have these components. They have not been, home is not defined. We have not imported home. Home doesn't exist. Okay? So we have the basic structure of main now, but we still need to go and import. So, you know, we'll just import it. Import home from components, home, right? And then we will do it for all 3 of them. Roster and schedule. Okay. Then our app isn't going to crash because this file isn't even being used. It's not being imported. It's not doing it. Okay. This is our main. So let me do this. Let me select out main right now. There's main. I will push up main 2. Git add, right? Git status. Git add. Git commit. Added main components to tornadoes. Boom. Git push. Now it's up there where you need it. All right. So now it's just a matter of creating like home, roster, and schedule at the most basic level. Home is really going to be easy because it's just one thing. Schedule is really easy because it just has a UL with some content. I'll slack out that content. So here I'm going to go to components and create a new home.js file. Right? Once again, same concept. I'm just going to take something else like header in this instance. Actually main and header because I have to delete less, right? And go to home, paste it in home. I don't need the import. Won't error out. It'll just scream at me. And I'm going to export home. And home is really just going to be a div that just says H1 welcome. But I'm going to do this just so that we remember about React fragment. We don't need it here, but once again, I want to keep exposing you to these things. And React fragment is the faux pas, F-A-U-X, right? P-A-X. Element, and all we'd have to do here is put in H1 and just say, welcome to the Tornadoes website. Didn't break anything. I'm putting an H1 in a div. There's no real styling on this page anyway, so there's nothing here. No imports or anything else. It's just a really kind of a dumb component, you know? Or a, you know, more elegant way, a presentation component, right? Okay, I created that component, and basic. So I'll go through the process of adding it, git commit, added home component, git push, right? Always have these changes. Next one is the roster. Okay, I'm gonna go here and just do new file and roster.js. Same thing, I'm gonna go to home because it's pretty much the same basic components here. Not a lot going on there. Paste roster, and then just do the same thing. Click, click. One more click. Roster. Okay. Let me just see the exact code that we're putting in. Roster is going to have some other stuff. So here in roster, I am going to just say, you know, welcome, or just roster. We're going to have some other stuff there. That's where some other magic happens. But my goal is to just to get stuff on the screen. Can we just get something on the screen? Okay. So there's roster. And then the last one is going to be the schedule. And I'll slack out the code for the schedule also. I'm going to slack this out just any minute now. Let me slack out both of them when I get it. Schedule.js. Here's the roster. It's pretty identical. Here's schedule. And then just making those subtle changes. Okay. And then the code for it is this. So I'll put it in here and then I'll slack out the whole schedule component. This is the whole schedule component. Okay. Here's the schedule. And I think the other one was what, the roster? Or roster. Roster was the other one. And I'm going to commit these changes now. Git add all of them. Git commit m added roster and schedule components. Git push. That's interesting. Oh, I'm adding one to the wrong one. Did I not? Oh, here we go. Git add all. Okay. Everything has been pushed up. That was a lot. That was quick. The only thing we have to do to like see this right now, just import main. Main has a lot of stuff, right? Main has all these components, all these routes. So let's take a look and see. We can import main here. Import main from components, and main, and just use it here. Oh, what does this say? I'm gonna spell it. Cannot resolve components home and tornadoes SRC. What did I do? I misspelled it. Components main. And if I go to main, oh, so I put components here, but the thing is already in the same component. Like main, home, header, roster, schedule are all located in here. So I don't need to reference components because they are all elements inside of components directory. Awesome. So now we have our basic structure for our app. Right, based on this design, router, app, header, main, route, roster, schedule. These things are all been created. All right, let's test it out. You know, go back to our app. Obviously, home should go to that. Roster goes to that, but I don't see anything, and schedule isn't really showing anything either. This is main, and unless, you know, I mistyped roster, should say roster, schedule should have given me the schedule. This isn't happening anymore, so let's take a look and see. It is changing the URL here. We're not seeing that reflected here. And I'm going to see, is there any errors? Do I have any errors coming? Nope. Doesn't look like there's any errors. So why would, and this was happening earlier, right? We had some issues where things were not moving as we thought they should be or changing. I think some of the things that we came up with was adding the exact link. And it wasn't here. It was in our main component, right? Because this is what's managing the changes, right? I'm going to add, maybe start adding that keyword exact here. Let's see if exact solves the problem. Oh, look at that. There you go. Roster. So in this instance, we only need one exact path match. That's really all we need. Okay? Otherwise, this kind of gets interpreted all the time. It's matching it for some reason. It's just matching this as a match. It has a forward slash, you have a forward slash, boom. That must mean it. But roster and schedule have additional information. It's just interpreting that. So we have our little app kind of working as we need it to work, right? So I will do this, push up any changes that I made, get here, making sure I'm in the right one. Git add everything, git commits, routes working in Tornado app. And what would I, push. Okay, there we go. Sweet. Now we just got a basic app working. Not a lot going on here. It is basic. And so the idea now is, it's really like roster is where the work has to get done. Home and schedule, they work just like the app did, right? Here, home and schedule really didn't change or have any clicks to it, but roster, what is roster output? What does it look like roster outputs? Like what kind of elements are those just by looking at them?
Those are links.
Yeah. They're anchor tags with links. They're like another series of navigations, right? That's what it looks like. It looks like this thing is an anchor tag with a link that's going to take me someplace. And if I went to developer tools to look at the someplace that this thing would possibly take me, I would see, look at this. Look at what it's doing there. Now that kind of looks like it's doing something where it's leveraging the ID. Does it look like that? Maybe an ID of something? If we were going to a database, on our database side, we might have roster /:ID. And anytime they send something to the roster path, we should be able to grab the roster path, right? It just makes sense. That seems to be what's happening. These are IDs.
And almost there might be an array of players, and that might be their index number.
Exactly. So I'm going to slack out the array of players, right? So now you're starting to see this pattern. So by looking at, what's really good is looking at what's in DevTools, exploring how someone created something might give you an indication of the structure of the thing, whatever the thing is, right? We don't really know. So let me slack out. That's our data. So our data is these players. It's called the player API because it's trying to simulate like importing data as an API. We're not going to do that. We can just call it players, but we definitely have the data. And so now that we have the data, where would this data need to be imported if we really wanted to use this data?
The highest level up.
Well, you know, it's back to like the design of, let me just close some of these. it's like in this particular one, like because of the form, state could have been contained in form, right? So we didn't have to raise everything up to the app level of state, but app here needed to have state because it's passing things down to do, and it's like the conduit between the two, right? Anything in form needs to finally get to a task, right? It needs to get down here, which means it needs to get down here, and data is unidirectional, so it has to go up to come back down, one way, right? So saying that it has to be at the highest level, well, where does the data need to be accessible in home? Not really. Home's like, all I output is a website. Does it need to be accessible in schedule? Not really. Schedule is just the schedule. Roster is the thing where it needs to be accessible from. That is the place that needs access to the data. So if roster is the place that we need access to, if we went to roster, then we should try to access that data from here. Now, we've learned like importing data, right? So I could put, like a const here of router or players, API is equal to, and then paste everything, right? I think that's, let me see. Is that what I did? All right, is this gonna work? Parsing error, unexpected token, so doesn't necessarily want that there, right? I wanna do this. I wanna create a data file, or a new file, and I'll call it, players.js. I'll put my players in there, and I'll export default player API. And this way I can simulate what it's like. Import data, and have access to it. It cleans up the files, right? Because if this thing had 1,000 players, the last thing I'd want to do is go to roster and see something here that's 1,000 lines long. And in order to get to roster, I have to go all the way down 1,000 lines. That's not an efficient way of doing it. So we could import players, right, from players.js. We should get access to it, right? This is players is defined but never used. Right. And I would, at this point in time, just make sure that I got access to it. Console log. This is players and C players. Go back to our app. Go to roster. Here we go. Players. I have access to players. So this is good. We have access to the players. Okay. So far, we've used one level of routing. Okay, and that routing has been in header, right? No, I'm sorry. Was it main? Main used routes, right? So that's what main has been using. It's been using routes there. Rosters and players, right? So roster is where we're going to have our players. Roster can also leverage another segment of routes, okay? And we can pass data down to a component here. So there are two more components that I did not include here just yet. There's two more components that come out of roster called full roster and player, okay? So if I go here and I copy this, let me see, copy, oh, no. Just want to copy the component, copy, paste, paste. I can have two more components that come out, and this one's going to be called full roster. Is it called full roster? And this one's going to be called player, okay? And they're both being rendered by roster, okay? So that means I need to import 2 components here in order for this to work, okay? And then I need to refactor my roster. I was going down this route just to make sure that things work, right? Like I just want to be able to click on things, make sure things work, and then take it the next level deep. I'm just trying to show you like the best way to tackle something in small increments so that I'm not trying to do everything at once, okay? We know that players is here. We could have localized maybe players someplace else, but players is here. So we're going to do something like import. We didn't create it yet, but once again, I know based on our design that I need full roster and player. So I'm going to say import full roster from full roster, and then do the same with player. Import player from player. All right. They don't exist, and I think our app would, is it going to crap out? Yeah, it's crapping out because it's like these things don't exist. Trying to run something, components roster, these things don't exist, so we got a problem. So in order just to get things working, right, console log and just make sure the app works, I'm going to go ahead and create a full roster. So I'll just go new file here and do full roster.js. And I'll just do the player since I'm already here too. Player.js. Full roster and player. And once again, we can take some basic stuff. I can reuse this for now just to make sure that things work. And I can delete what I don't need. I can go to full roster, paste full roster. Let me get rid of players here because I don't think I need players there. I don't need full roster and I don't need player here either, right? Because I am full player, and then I just need to update these 2 components to be full player, right? I'm not going to console log this, and I just want to say I can leave this faux pas thing here and just say full player, right? Doesn't matter. I just want to make sure the thing works. This looks pretty basic, so I think I'm going to just take this one and use this for the player themselves, and I'll do the same thing. Here, here, player. I'll just say right here, player. Awesome. I think, here we go, home. Schedule, then I go to roster, roster there, and what do we got, our roster, and roster, even though it imported these, hasn't done anything with routing for them, right? So the goal now is to like do something with routing for these 2 components, okay? So let's change this up a bit. For roster, I want to import, I'm going to go up here, I'm going to do another sub-routing. I'm going to import, switch, and router from React DOM router, okay? And instead of doing this React fragments, I'm going to return a switch, 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 and then a route. I'm going to put here exact path because we already realized, like at times we need to have some sort of exact. So I'm just going to say exact roster, and then I'm going to pass down the component full roster. See, this full roster is a component full roster. It is. component for roster. Am I missing something here? Parsing error expected dot and got that. What am I doing wrong here? Do you see it? Because I have full roster here. Unless I spelled it wrong, right? I copy, paste.
Equal.
Equal sign.
Equal sign.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Awesome. See? You can do this stuff all day. Still, something like that may just trip me up. A route is not defined. Oh, it's not router. It's route. Okay. What's this next one? Component roster. A module cannot be found. React router. Oh, I misspelled it. It's React router down, not React DOM router. Okay. Boom. Oh my God. Takes forever as it does just to get this tiny little app to work, right? Schedule and roster. All right. So roster, look, roster is showing me the full roster. So what's happening here is there is a roster inside. If I go to main, look, main has a roster, right? And so earlier when we went to roster and we went to this roster, it was like, cool, you want to go to roster? I will give you to a sub component, right? Roster. But roster now is like, hey, you know what? I'm taking over routing now. So if it says router, if it says roster in the route, I'm in control now. I'll take it over from here. Thanks roster, you know, or thanks main for sending it to me. I will take control. It's really what it's doing. It's the same path as the one that was passed in. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. And then the next one would be, well, we know we have player, right? So I'm just going to copy and paste this and say stack path player. And this would be player. Now, once again, we don't have a player, but I do have a component and I do have a path. So what do we need to do here to get to player? Like, I'm just curious. Do we just do player? No, because player does say something, right?
Do we need to set a route with a colon and then like whatever we want?
Well, I see what you're saying. If we wanted to get a single player though, right? Because that's where you're going. If we want to take a look at a single player, sure.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I just want to see, like, how do I get to player? Like, I'm here and I don't have a click thing to get there. So I'm going to go back here and just say, I'm going to go back to roster and just see, does roster work? Sure thing. I wonder if I have to do roster, player. Nope.
Oh, can you create a user list or an unordered list that are each links with the different players?
Yeah, we're gonna do exactly what you just said. And Mace, you were right the first time. This isn't going to be player, it's going to be roster
/ colon
number or ID, right?
Yeah.
I think ID sounds better. I mean, I'm looking at the solution, it says number. I personally think ID is a much suited thing for this, right? So having this route would allow us to go roster, I want to see player 2, and I see player. I don't see the number 2, but I definitely see player there, okay? Now, you're right in the fact that our roster has all of our, or our full roster has all of our players, right? Here's the question, though, and it's how do we get our data down? This is something we didn't cover. And so a lot of the times when we teach router, it takes an all-day thing, right? Just to teach the fundamentals of router is like an all-day thing. There's one thing in the lecture, if I go back to, let me see if I still have the lecture open. There's one thing in the lecture that I mentioned up top, but I didn't really get into detail of it, was this. When we create our routes, there is the path, which we've used constantly. Path is equal to something. And then there's component, as in wanting to render a component. But there's also another method instead of component. We can say render. Render allows us to pass data and props, additional props, down to the things that we want to see. And it makes sense that full roster needs to get access to players. So either we make the decision that players should be given to full roster, we import it directly, or we pass it down. Okay? So we're going to pass it down. I'm going to show you how to pass it down. I'm going to just go to another line because this is going to get a little bit long. So I'm just going to kind of go to this next line for this particular route because it will get long. I'm going to use the render method. Now the render method says, all right, you want to render something. What do you want to render? All right, so I'm going to render in curly braces because that's where we start. Ultimately, we will render the full roster, but I'm just going to kind of get rid of this for right now so we could see how to do this. So when I render, I am going to take in a callback, props. That's our callback. And we saw props when we do functional components like this, right? If I want props there, that would be our functional component. I'm going to pass it down props, fat arrow, and then I'm going to tell it the components that I kind of want to render. And this is full roster. That's the component. And then in curly braces, I'm going to do ... props. What does the ... do again? Anybody recall what the ... does? In an array, what does it do? ... in an array is called the spread operator, right? Spreads open an array, takes everything in it. And I know you did that in the movies because I saw that in the video. This is something similar in the fact that it's going to take all the props that came down and like recreate that. That's what it's doing, this ... It's an ES6 thing. And then what are the props you want to pass down? Well, I want to pass down the full roster, and that is full, it's players, right? Here, instead of that, I'm just going to say players because that makes more sense, right? Players is equal to players. All right, let me see. I see unexpected token. Let me just end this. Here's our component, and our component needs to end. Right, I think this is it, unless I'm getting another error. Player is not defined. Players is what it is, right? Players and players. All right, nothing broke. Hope not. We're back to, this is good. Now nothing's going to change, right? Nothing changes, but watch this. Instead of console logging players here now, because we already know that that works, because I'm kind of importing it from here anyway, I'm going to go to the full roster here. I'm going to pass down props, and I'm going to say this is full player props. So I know that's what I'm getting. And let's take a look at what gets passed down. Here, go to home, it works. Schedule works. Let's take a look at roster. Look at roster. What is this right here? These three come from where? History, location, and match come from,
Router.
What thing is router, right? Route is passing that down. But look what I got here. Players. Right? I got the players. So now we know that if I have an array of players, what could I create from a player's, what component do we have that could render that? A player, maybe? Right? We go to the functionality of it. I go to roster. Here's my roster. If I click on one of these, if I go here to roster, I should like spin out one of these players, and then each player should have its own info. Right? So I think the only thing is here, and we're going to have to leave it off because it is 4:57. I will spin off the players. So where do we need to run players from? If I'm in roster, right? I'm in a roster. I'm just going to expand this so maybe we'll see more of it. And here's player component, and we did import player component here, right? So that we could do this. We still need to render players, right? And I think players is going to be inside of the full rosters, right? Because we need to render individual players here. Now, can we do that here? How would we do that here? Is it possible to map over them? Sure, right? That would be possible. This is full player, and we could easily, now that we have this, do something like a let's players equal to props dot players dot map, right? Data element, the index of those elements, and then we would return something, right? We're going to return like LIs because that's what that is, right? LI and key. Keys needed for React, right? These elements are like Xerox copies of one another. The only way it can tell the difference in a map is using the key, right? We can say D dot, forgot what the data looks like. Let me just take a look at players. D dot name right here, right? Okay, full roster. D dot in curly braces. D dot name. And we end it. And the LI, right? It's being used. And then here is where we could do it, right? I probably want to put a UL now. Like, I don't need this anymore. Full players, I probably want to do something like a UL, and then output players, right? It should take us here. Oh, what's this? Let players, it's not allowing me. Props.players.map is not a function. Okay, now we saw when I did this that I did have players here. Oh, it's players dot what?
Players.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Okay. Because I passed an object down. Players was a key, a prop, that was passing down an object that had players in it. I probably don't want to do this, right? That's just not the best. So go home, schedule, roster, right? I think I have an extra bracket here someplace, right? These things are, oh yeah, this one right there. Awesome. Okay? Sweet. Now we didn't get to finish this. I mean, there's a few more, probably could take 15, 20 more minutes to like bang it all out. I'll push up the code that we've done so far. I'll give you the solution from the CodePen, and then from that, see if you can derive the next couple of steps that would need to get done. Once again, what's in the CodePen is just this free-flowing, I'm just going to create a demo. We are trying to structure it more into something that makes sense in breaking things down into applications, okay? The CodePen itself, the actual, CodePen with the code is, let me see, is this. Once again, I will slack it out. And it has all these freestanding components. Like here's roster, here's schedule, okay? I made a few additional things in order to pass data down. But you can see from it how somebody would have constructed something in a CodePen, really basic and really dumb, and see how to work out maybe the rest of it. This isn't homework, but it's something if you want to try to tackle, okay? The real lesson here at this part of this demo was to get over routes. How do we create routes? How do we do that, and how can we pass a subroute and introduce a new render action instead of component, okay? That was a lot. I almost felt like the morning session was just like, da-da-da, you catch up. And the afternoon just was like a shotgun, like, here's a bunch of stuff, more stuff, right? This is really important, though, to kind of cover because routing is something you're going to use. Let's just put it that way. Routing creates the single page app. Without routing in React, you're going to be refreshing the page every time you get something. And your ultimate goal is going to be able to have a header and a footer, and the content in the middle changes with the user changing the URL. That change is this, or the house example that we did, okay? They're both the same. So I'll select this out so you can have this code. This code is actually from like the official React router examples that they give. So if you go to the official React router site, they walk through kind of this and how they built it out, okay? I was just creating it. I haven't ever really created it as a Create React app. So I found it really interesting to take these pieces and try to understand them and like turn them into something that's more structured versus this kind of willy-nilly, everything has access to everything else kind of approach. Because that's not writing a real app, okay? Okay. How's everyone feeling? Okay. Well, you know, I will soon see how you're feeling in the exit tickets. You tell me how you're feeling in the exit tickets. It's probably going to be like critical, like red alert, Ryan. We're getting too much. Okay. But ask questions. Whatever questions you have, I'll look at the tickets. I'll try to respond to the questions. If you do work on this on your own, reach out to me. Let me know and start thinking about your portfolio site and how now you have Router to start off your portfolio site. You can create links and know what to start rendering in those links. That's important, and how to pass data. Okay, it's just a leg up. Awesome. All right. So I'll leave it up to you. Yeah, you have the link to the exit tickets, right? I don't have to Slack that out. You always have it. Awesome. Cool. Any questions? I know we're at 5:05. I don't think anybody's going to kill me because we're at 5:05, right? All right. All right. Sweet Mace. It's the signal. Mace is a nice way of being like, all right, that's it. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll post the recording the minute it's finished uploading, okay?
Thanks,
awesome.
Jeff.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay.